I want you to do something for me real quick. Just for a second, look at the screen you're using right now.
Yeah, your phone, maybe a secondary monitor.
Right, a tablet, whatever it is. And I want you to think about all the apps running in the background.
Yeah.
The notifications that are, queued up on your lock screen.
The comments you literally just scrolled past on a video like 5 minutes ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to ask yourself a deeply uncomfortable question. How much of the internet that you are interacting with today is actually human?
It's a jarring question, honestly, when you move past that surface layer of our digital routines.
Yeah.
Because we operate on this baseline assumption of biological presence, right? We just assume there is a nervous system on the other side of every interaction.
Like a person physically typing a comment.
Right. A human optic nerve watching a video or a physical finger actually tapping a like button.
We treat the digital world as this one-to-one mapping of physical reality, just mediated by, I don't know, fiber optic cables and Wi-Fi.
But that assumption is just profoundly broken.
It really is. And today our mission is to completely dismantle that illusion for you. We are doing a deep dive into the invisible, automated infrastructure that basically underpins our entire online existence.
And we've got some fascinating source material today. It's essentially this highly analytical document, a mix of a digital diary and a Q&A that explores the mechanics, the hidden realities, and the ethics of internet bots.
Yeah, and we're moving way beyond that simplistic narrative of, bots are just spam. To really grasp the current ecosystem, we have to look at automation not just as some technical trick, but as an economic inevitability.
We're going to explore what happens to authenticity, to attention, and the very concept of creating when that barrier between human intention and machine execution completely dissolves.
Okay, let's unpack this. We aren't going to waste your time defining what a bot is. I mean, we all know it's automated software executing tasks for a network.
Right, the basics.
But the crucial differentiator, the thing that actually separates human behavior from machine behavior, isn't just the code. It really comes down to scale and consistency.
That is the dividing line. I mean, human behavior is inherently entropic. We are messy. We get tired. Our attention spans fracture constantly. If you feel strongly about a topic, you might post a long, impassioned comment. You might even post 5 if you're really fired up.
But a headless browser script running on a virtual private server, it doesn't get tired.
No, not at all. It operates with this terrifying machine-like consistency. It's capable of executing 10,000 complex, multi-step network requests in the time it takes your human brain to process a single thought.
Which is wild to think about. So to make sense of this massive ecosystem, the source material segments these automated actors into 3 distinct lanes.
Right. The useful, the neutral, and the malicious.
Let's start with the green light. The useful bots, because honestly, the internet's infrastructure would literally collapse without them.
Oh, absolutely. Think about search engine crawlers. The entire utility of the web relies on these asynchronous scripts that are just endlessly mapping hyperlinks and indexing content.
Or like uptime monitors.
Exactly. Financial API wrappers updating global market data in milliseconds. Algorithmic moderation tools scrubbing illicit content before a human moderator ever has to be traumatized by it.
Right, there's structural necessities. They're the invisible load-bearing walls of the web. But then we hit the yellow light. The neutral or commercial bots. I'm going to challenge the neutral label right out of the gate here.
I figured you might.
I mean, this category includes data scrapers and high-frequency purchasing scripts, what we commonly call sneaker bots or ticket scalping bots.
So the categorization of neutral usually stems from the idea that the underlying action isn't inherently destructive or illegal. It's an acceleration of a legal commercial action.
But look at the mechanics of a sneaker bot. If I want a limited edition pair of shoes, I click the site, I wait in a queue, and I enter my credit card.
Like a normal person.
Right. But if I spin up an AWS instance running 50 parallel scripts, rotating through a pool of residential proxies to bypass rate limits, and instantly solving CAPTCHAs via some third-party API.
You're bypassing the entire system.
Exactly. I am deliberately circumventing the UX design and the queuing logic of that platform. I am bringing an automated Gatling gun to a fistfight. How is that not malicious?
Well, because intent matters in how we categorize software. From a purely economic standpoint, malicious software implies disruption or unauthorized access or theft.
Like ransomware.
Right, or a DDoS attack. A sneaker bot doesn't destroy the Shopify backend. It just executes a high-frequency retail arbitrage strategy.
Arbitrage.
Yeah, it's exploiting structural leverage. You view it as malicious because the market outcome is highly asymmetric and, frankly, unfair to the retail consumer. But the script itself is just executing a highly optimized purchase order.
It's weaponized efficiency.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. Bots in this commercial category solve what the text calls the trinity of digital leverage: repetition, scale, and influence.
Okay, break that down for me.
Humans are biologically bottlenecked when it comes to repetition and scale. By outsourcing those bottlenecks to parallel compute, the user gains disproportionate influence over a system. In a hyper-competitive environment where attention or inventory is scarce, weaponized efficiency isn't just an advantage, it becomes a survival requirement for these arbitrageurs.
I see the distinction. So the bot isn't trying to burn down the store. It just wants to buy all the inventory before the front door even opens.
Exactly.
But while buying physical inventory is one thing, the implications become far more insidious when we shift our focus from e-commerce to platforms where the currency is human connection.
Yes, the social layer.
What happens when these automated systems stop buying shoes and start manufacturing content? Let's talk about the YouTube gray zone.
When we transition to content platforms like YouTube, the definition of a bot requires a major update. We are rarely talking about a single Python script randomly uploading files.
Right.
We're talking about highly sophisticated, integrated content pipelines that are pretending to be creators.
It's an automated assembly line for attention.
Consider the architecture of a modern faceless channel. A cron job triggers a script every morning to pull trending topics from social media APIs. That data is fed into a large language model with specific prompts designed to bypass plagiarism detectors and write a script.
Wow.
Then, that script is passed to a text-to-speech API, maybe something highly tunable that models human breath and inflection. Another script scrapes royalty-free footage or generates synthetic images, and an automated editor stitches it all together.
And then it just uploads it automatically.
Finally, the platform's API handles the upload, the thumbnail generation, and the SEO tagging. The entire pipeline operates without a single human creative decision.
That is wild. And just like our previous categories, we can divide these content pipelines into the useful, the neutral, and the malicious. And surprisingly, based on our source, I have to admit that a fully automated YouTube channel can actually be incredibly useful.
It fills a distinct void in the information market. Think of localized weather alerts, real-time supply chain mapping, or highly specific financial aggregators.
Oh, sure.
If a viewer needs to know the minute-by-minute fluctuations of a specific commodities market, a programmatic data visualization channel updated hourly is infinitely more useful than a human creator who, actually needs to sleep.
Automation enables consistency and speed that biology just cannot match. But then we slide into the neutral territory, the massive, sprawling ecosystem of faceless YouTube.
Right.
These are the channels churning out top 10 most dangerous roads or narrating Reddit threads over random gameplay footage.
And these pipelines exist purely because they have successfully reverse-engineered the platform's incentive structures. They are optimization-first channels, not expression-first channels.
Meaning they don't care about the art.
Exactly. The algorithm rewards retention, watch time, and upload consistency. Automation drops the marginal cost of production to near zero. So these channels aren't necessarily trying to harm the viewer, but they certainly aren't trying to connect with them either. They are just harvesting attention at scale.
Optimization first versus expression first. That's a really critical lens for you listening to apply. Which brings us to the malicious content bots. This is where it stops being about harvesting attention and crosses the line into active deception.
Yeah, this is the dark side.
Deepfake impersonations, fake financial gurus running crypto pump and dumps, or coordinated networks designed to launder geopolitical misinformation.
The psychological mechanism at play here is fascinating. You have to ask, why go through the computational trouble of synthesizing a human voice or generating a photorealistic deepfake avatar?
Right. Why pretend to be human at all?
Because humans have evolved biometric trust heuristics. We evaluate information differently when we believe it is coming from a conspecific, another human being with lived experience, vulnerabilities, and a reputation at stake.
That makes total sense. Like if a robotic voice tells me to invest in a cryptocurrency, my analytical firewall goes up immediately. I evaluate the claim coldly. But if a seemingly real person with a relatable backstory and conversational cadence tells me the exact same thing, my emotional empathy circuits engage.
Precisely. Pretending to be human bypasses our cognitive firewalls. It enables higher engagement, easier persuasion, and ultimately greater influence. The fundamental ethical dividing line in automated content isn't between high effort and low effort.
No.
It is the line between transparent automation and deceptive automation.
Right. Transparent automation is an honest transaction. The channel has a banner that says, "This video utilizes AI narration for daily market updates."
Yeah.
The viewer understands the contract.
Exactly.
But deceptive automation is architectural fraud. It's like building a skyscraper out of papier-mâché but painting it to look like load-bearing steel. It invents a personality, it fakes a backstory, and simulates a community that just doesn't exist.
It lies to the viewer about the nature of the entity they are forming a parasocial relationship with.
Which fundamentally shifts the burden onto the viewer. Like, we can no longer afford to be passive consumers of media. We have to actively evaluate the structural integrity of the content.
You really do.
Is there a verifiable human identity behind the channel? Does the cadence of the voiceover lack the micro-imperfections of real speech?
Yeah.
Does the channel output videos at a velocity that defies biological limits?
We have to become forensic analysts of our own entertainment.
Yeah. But creating this fake optimized content is only one side of the equation. Content is totally useless if nobody sees it. What about the unseen armies that exist purely to manufacture momentum?
The engagement bots.
Right. Because on platforms governed by algorithms, engagement is the actual currency.
We are moving from the illusion of creation to the illusion of consensus. Engagement bots are arguably more technically sophisticated than content bots because they have to operate in hostile territory.
They have to evade detection.
Exactly. They have to actively evade the platform's multi-million-dollar counter-abuse systems.
I used to think of botting as just a brute force attack, like a script pointing 1,000 fake accounts at a video and hitting like all at once.
That hasn't worked in years.
Right. The reality of manufactured momentum involves a staggering level of operational security. It starts with the accounts themselves. You can't just spin up 10,000 Gmail addresses on a single server rack in an afternoon and expect YouTube to treat them as valid users.
The platforms perform deep historical analysis on every single account. A brand new account has zero heuristic trust. So bot operators engage in what's called account aging.
Account aging.
Yeah. They either purchase massive lists of compromised accounts from data breaches accounts that have years of legitimate human history attached to them.
Oh, wow.
Or they farm new accounts by simulating low-level background activity for months before ever deploying them for a targeted campaign.
They are basically letting the accounts marinate to build up a fake credit score with the algorithm.
That's a great way to put it.
And the way they execute the engagement is just wild. They don't just use basic HTTP requests. They use browser automation frameworks with stealth plugins to spoof their digital fingerprints.
Because if 10,000 accounts suddenly connect from the exact same data center IP block, the platform drops the ban hammer instantly. The botnets have to route their traffic through massive rotating residential proxy networks. They hijack the IP addresses of everyday smart TVs, IoT refrigerators, and infected home routers.
Wait, so my smart fridge could be liking a video right now?
Literally, yes, to make the traffic look like it's coming from legitimate households scattered globally.
And then there's the behavior simulation. This is where it gets genuinely creepy to me. The bots don't just load the video URL, click like, and close the tab.
No, because that algorithm measures watch time and session duration as the primary indicators of quality.
So the software has to inject synthetic entropy into its actions. It simulates mouse jitter, it scrolls down to read the comments at randomized intervals. It watches the video for varying lengths of time. Like, one bot watches for 3 minutes, another for 8, another pauses the video, switches tabs, and comes back.
They are mathematically modeling the chaotic, distracted nature of human attention to avoid triggering the anomaly detection systems.
It's like an artificial spark designed to look exactly like a real fire. But it reminds me of trying to start a campfire by just dumping a gallon of lighter fluid on a wet log.
Okay, I like this analogy.
You get this massive, blinding flash of heat and light. It looks incredibly impressive for about 10 seconds. But because the underlying material, the log, hasn't actually caught fire, the moment the synthetic fuel burns off, the whole thing just goes cold.
That is a highly precise analogy for how algorithms process manufactured momentum. The bot operator believes that if they can generate the initial spark faking, say, 50,000 views and 5,000 likes, the algorithm will be tricked into distributing the video to millions of real humans.
The social proof.
Exactly. And historically, that worked. A human sees a video with high numbers, assumes it has value, and clicks.
But the platform algorithms have evolved, haven't they? They don't just look at the raw tally of likes anymore. They look at the second-order effects.
Exactly. Modern recommendation engines prioritize long-tail retention metrics and user satisfaction signals. If a botnet artificially inflates a video's metrics, the algorithm might briefly test it with a cohort of real organic users.
To see what happens.
Right, but if those real users click on the video and immediately bounce after 10 seconds because the content is garbage, the algorithm recognizes the disparity.
Ah.
It sees the artificial spark, notes the lack of organic combustion, and completely halts distribution. The fake engagement might trick human psychology temporarily, but it rarely tricks the machine learning models long term.
So if platforms are this smart, and the algorithms look past the raw numbers to the behavioral realities, just how massive is this shadow war? Because it feels like an endless cat-and-mouse game between the bot developers and the platform engineers.
Oh, the scale of automated traffic is staggering, and quantifying it requires looking at network-level telemetry. While social platform bot accounts typically hover between 5% and 15%, depending on the stringency of the platform's current purge cycle.
Which is already a lot.
It is, but the broader web metrics are even more revealing. Historically, research indicates that roughly 42% of all web traffic globally is automated.
Wait, really? Nearly half of all the data moving across the internet is just machine-to-machine communication.
Yes. But on social platforms, the critical metric isn't the raw percentage of automated accounts, it's the concept of density and disproportionate impact. Bots punch vastly above their weight class.
Because they don't sleep.
Exactly. Because they operate at superhuman speeds, a botnet that makes up only 5% of a platform's user base might be generating 30% or 40% of the visible engagement.
Wow.
The trending hashtags, the comment volume, the rapid spikes in velocity.
And they aggregate in specific environments. Like if I'm watching a highly niche video about, I don't know, antique woodworking, the comment section is probably 99% organic.
Yeah, almost certainly.
But if I wander into a high-stakes attention market, a cryptocurrency launch, a massive political debate, or a channel promising algorithmic growth hacks, the bot density becomes overwhelming. I might be looking at a comment section where half the interactions are synthesized by large language models prompted to sound enthusiastic.
Great content, bro. Fire emoji.
Literally. Which forces platforms like YouTube to construct detection architectures that rival the complexity of the global financial system.
Oh, absolutely.
The way YouTube combats this isn't through simple keyword filters or static rule sets anymore. It operates much more like credit card fraud detection at a massive planetary scale. They are searching for multidimensional fingerprints of synthetic behavior.
Let's look under the hood of that detection architecture because it's fascinating. It relies heavily on advanced machine learning, specifically graph neural networks and behavioral clustering. The first major pillar of their defense is behavioral vector analysis.
Behavioral vector analysis. Okay.
When a human uses a platform, their sequence of actions creates a highly specific behavioral vector. You watch a documentary, you skip an ad, you pause to answer a text message, you search for a specific creator, you watch 3 minutes of a gaming video.
It's random.
That path is full of friction and tangential interests. A bot farm, even with synthetic entropy injected into its code, struggles to maintain high-dimensional variance over time.
So they end up looking too similar.
Yes. When an algorithm compares the behavioral vectors of millions of users, clusters of accounts that align too perfectly, accounts exhibiting a cosine similarity of 99.9% in their viewing habits, they glow like neon signs on the back end.
The second pillar is timing and velocity analysis. Because real virality is messy.
Very messy.
If a video genuinely takes off, the engagement graph looks like an organic fractal. It surges, it dips based on time zones, people waking up, it spreads through disparate social graphs. A botnet turning on looks entirely different to a machine learning model.
It looks mechanical.
Right. Even if they stagger the requests, applying a Fourier transform to the engagement data often reveals synthetic periodicity. The likes arrive in patterns that are simply too mathematically clean to be biological.
Then you have the third pillar, network constellation mapping.
What's that?
The algorithm doesn't just evaluate the suspicious account in a vacuum, it evaluates the bipartite graph of user-to-video interactions.
Okay, in English.
Basically, if a distinct cluster of 5,000 accounts consistently watch the exact same small group of disparate channels and consistently upvote each other's generated comments while ignoring the rest of the platform, The system identifies the constellation, not just the individual stars. It identifies the bot herder's entire network topology.
And the punishment for getting caught by this massive surveillance apparatus is really fascinating because it's rarely a dramatic, immediate ban.
Right.
If they just banned the bot accounts instantly, the bot developers would know exactly which evasion tactic failed and they would adapt their code. Instead, the platforms utilize silent filtering.
From an engineering standpoint, silent filtering is brilliant. When the bot account clicks like, the server accepts the request and returns a success code. The bot's dashboard registers the engagement.
So the bot thinks it worked.
Exactly. But deep in the backend database, that interaction is flagged as synthetic and completely nullified. It is stripped from the recommendation algorithm's weighting system.
The platform essentially drops the engagement packets into a black hole, allowing the bot operator to burn their compute, waste their proxy bandwidth, and spend their money on a complete illusion.
And if a creator is caught repeatedly purchasing these services, the platform applies reach suppression, colloquially known as shadow banning.
The dreaded shadow ban.
The videos are simply removed from the recommendation carousel. The platform doesn't need to delete the channel, they just starve it of the one thing it needs to survive: organic human reach.
So given this incredibly hostile, highly sophisticated detection environment, why do creators continue to risk their channels? I mean, why buy the bots when the algorithm is essentially designed to mathematically incinerate fake engagement?
Because the psychological pressure of the attention economy is immense, and visibility is the scarcest resource on Earth right now.
It is.
The systems are designed as winner-take-all algorithms. If a creator spends 40 hours researching, filming, and editing a video, and it launches to 0 impressions because the algorithm didn't seed it to the right audience, the despair is profound.
It's heartbreaking for them.
The temptation to purchase a shortcut, to artificially manufacture that initial velocity in the desperate hope that it will trigger organic distribution, overrides rational risk assessment.
It's the desperation of trying to break through an opaque algorithmic wall. Which brings us to what I consider the absolute core of today's deep dive. We've talked about e-commerce bots and we talked about YouTube bots. But to truly understand the moral ambiguity of automation in the attention economy, we have to look at how we value effort.
Yes, the philosophical core.
And you know what this entire dynamic reminds me of? It reminds me of the classic MMORPG old school RuneScape.
The comparison between the digital economy of old school RuneScape and the digital economy of social media provides a perfect framework for understanding the philosophy of digital labor. Let's explore the mechanics of that game.
Okay, for the uninitiated listening, old school RuneScape OSRS is a massive multiplayer online role-playing game whose entire structural identity is built on grueling, repetitive human effort.
Yes, the grind.
The core gameplay loop is affectionately, or perhaps sadistically, known as the grind. If you want your character to achieve the maximum level in the woodcutting skill, you must sit at your computer and manually click on virtual trees for hundreds upon hundreds of hours.
The game operates on a pure proof-of-work consensus mechanism, much like early cryptocurrencies, but the work is entirely human time and attention. Scarcity is the defining characteristic of the game's economy.
Right.
A high-level item is valuable specifically because it represents an enormous, undeniable expenditure of human lifespan.
Exactly. So what happens when a player introduces a bot into the OSRS ecosystem? A player writes a script that visually maps the game client, moves the mouse cursor automatically, and clicks the trees while the human player goes to sleep.
They bypass the effort.
The bot generates massive amounts of virtual wealth and experience points without any corresponding human labor.
In the context of OSRS, the bot completely shatters the physics of the virtual universe. It bypasses the foundational rule of effort-based scarcity.
It breaks the game.
It actively destroys the internal economy by flooding the market with raw materials, causing hyperinflation that devalues the legitimate labor of organic players. Therefore, in a proof-of-work ecosystem, automation is objectively binary. Botting is cheating. It is a hostile extraction of value.
It's the equivalent of printing counterfeit fiat currency. You are injecting fake value into a closed system that relies on trust. The developers catch you, they ban your IP, end of story. There is absolutely no moral gray area.
But now we must take that clear-cut binary framework and attempt to map it onto the economy of YouTube or TikTok. And this is where the framework collapses, because the underlying physics of the ecosystem are entirely different.
Right.
What is the fundamental currency of a social media platform?
It isn't effort. That's the harsh reality creators have to swallow. The YouTube algorithm doesn't care if a video took you 6 months of agonizing labor to animate by hand, or if you filmed it on your phone in 3 minutes while sitting in your car.
No, it doesn't.
The platform doesn't operate on proof of work. It operates purely on proof of attention.
Precisely. The platform's singular goal is to capture and sustain the human optic nerve for as long as possible to serve advertisements. In an effort-based economy like OSRS, bots break the rules. But in an attention-based economy like YouTube, automation doesn't break the rules. Automation is the rule.
YouTube's entire backend is a sprawling algorithmic automation engine. They want creators to use scheduling tools. They actively encourage the development of endless content pipelines so the viewer never has a reason to close the tab. The platform is inherently synergistic with automation.
So if a creator uses automated scripts to generate thumbnails, structure their metadata, or even synthesize their voiceover, they aren't counterfeiting currency like the OSRS bot.
Right.
They are simply using industrial tools to compete in an industrial attention market. The automation doesn't destroy the system, it actively feeds the system exactly what it demands: highly optimized, frictionless content.
Which completely shifts the ethical dividing line. If I use a bot in a video game, I am faking effort. That's bad. But if I use AI tools to generate a video, I'm not faking effort because effort isn't what's being measured. I am competing for attention.
Therefore, the ethical boundary is no longer human versus machine. The boundary shifts entirely to authenticity versus manipulation.
That's a huge distinction.
If a creator uses AI to synthesize a highly informative, accurate documentary, the attention it gathers is legitimate. The issue only arises, as we discussed earlier, when the automation is used to fake the identity of the creator or to manufacture fake consensus in the comment section.
It's like the difference between a laugh track on a sitcom and paying people to sit in the audience of a political debate and cheer.
Oh, that's good.
The sitcom laugh track is a known, automated tool used to enhance the entertainment value of the product. We all accept the illusion. But paying people to cheer at a debate is a deceptive manipulation of social proof designed to alter our perception of reality.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. And knowing that the dividing line is fundamentally about authenticity and intent, we can move from this macro-level analysis of algorithms and global botnets down to a deeply intimate, micro-level case study.
Yeah, let's get into the diary part of the source text.
The source material provides a profound self-reflection from an actual creator trying to navigate this exact ethical minefield.
And this creator's profile completely short-circuits the stereotypical image of a malicious bot herder operating out of a server farm. Let's look at the constraints this person has deliberately placed upon their own creative process.
They're very specific.
First, they extensively utilize AI tools. They use large language models as sparring partners for research. They use diffusion models to generate visual assets. And they use algorithmic tools to compose background music for their video essays.
But the crucial distinction lies in their operational workflow. They are not running a fully automated headless pipeline.
Right.
They are what we would classify as a human-in-the-loop creator or a tool-augmented creator. They act as the creative director of the latent space. They manually prompt the models, they curate the outputs, they aggressively edit the syntheses, and they sit at the computer to physically assemble the final narrative.
Constraint number 2. The channel is completely non-monetized. They aren't trying to hack the AdSense program or run affiliate scams. They view the channel as a digital sketchbook, a public diary of their hyperfixations and philosophical musings.
Pure expression.
Constraint 3. Radical transparency. Every video contains explicit disclaimers detailing exactly which AI tools were used in the production process.
And perhaps the most vital context of all is their personal reality. They're a busy parent with a demanding full-time career. They explicitly note that they utilize AI because they require a creative outlet that doesn't demand the uninterrupted physical bandwidth of traditional studio production.
They just don't have the time.
Right. They have a surplus of internal complex ideas, but a severe deficit of actionable time. The tools allow them to scale their self-expression to match their imagination.
By all the metrics we've established today, this creator is the gold standard of ethical automation. They are transparent, non-deceptive, and fundamentally driven by a desire to connect rather than manipulate.
They are.
And yet, the reaction from the audience is overwhelmingly hostile. Viewers discover the channel and immediately flood the comments with vitriol, dismissing the deeply personal video essays as AI slop.
This is the core of the creator's dilemma. They are operating ethically within an attention economy, yet they are being punished as if they were a malicious actor in a proof-of-work economy.
Yes.
To understand why this highly intentional art is rejected so violently, we have to examine the psychology of the viewer. The source text identifies 4 distinct cognitive biases driving this backlash.
Let's break those down. The first one is medium bias.
Medium bias occurs when the audience stops evaluating the emotional resonance or the intellectual rigor of a piece of art and instead exclusively evaluates the tools used to construct it.
Ah, okay.
Currently, the cultural consensus heavily associates AI output with spam, mass-market scams, and low-effort grift. Therefore, when a viewer detects an AI-generated image or voice, their cognitive heuristic immediately triggers a false positive. The tool used is AI, therefore the intent behind it must be malicious or lazy.
It's a complete shortcut. They throw out the baby, the bathwater, and the entire bathtub,
Exactly.
which connects perfectly to the second psychological barrier, the invisible labor problem.
This is a profound issue in all forms of digital creation, but it is exponentially worse with AI. When you watch a master carpenter build a table, the physical exertion is visible. You see the sweat, the precision of the saw, the hours of sanding. You intrinsically value the table because you witnessed the caloric expenditure.
It's undeniable.
But with AI-augmented creation, the labor is entirely cognitive and largely invisible.
The viewer doesn't see the parent sitting in the dark at 2 a.m., spending 4 hours refining a prompt, generating 200 variations of an image, discarding 199 of them, and painstakingly editing the pacing of the script to ensure the narrative flows perfectly.
They don't see any of that.
Because the physical friction of creation is hidden inside a server rack, the viewer assumes zero human friction was involved.
Exactly. And that leads to the third bias, which is rooted in deep evolutionary psychology: biometric trust heuristics.
We touched on this earlier.
Yes. Over millions of years, humans developed highly sensitive mechanisms to detect authenticity in other humans. We subconsciously look for microtremors in the voice, the subtle asymmetry of a face, the slight hesitation in a breath, or the physical imperfection of a brushstroke. These are the biological signatures of vulnerability and truth.
But AI models are mathematical optimizations. They systematically smooth out those imperfections. Even when an AI voice model adds breaths, they are mathematically calculated breaths. The variance is synthetic.
And our subconscious registers that lack of biological variance. We plunge into the uncanny valley of trust. Even if the creator script is incredibly vulnerable and authentic, the delivery mechanism lacks the biometric signatures required to trigger empathy.
The viewer's nervous system literally rejects the input as structurally unsafe, resulting in an instinctual hostility toward a content.
And the final reason for the AI slop backlash is simply the cultural moment. We are living through an era of profound ontological shock. People are terrified of economic obsolescence.
Losing their jobs.
They are exhausted by the deluge of actual malicious bot networks ruining their social feeds, and they feel a deep sense of existential dread about the devaluation of human uniqueness. This honest, transparent creator is just collateral damage. They're catching the shrapnel from a much larger societal explosion.
It creates a fascinating paradox regarding how we value art. Viewers use lack of effort as a moral club to beat AI creators, yet they happily consume incredibly low-effort human content on a daily basis.
Right, the double standard is glaring.
I was thinking about this when looking at the creator's dilemma. Effort is a terrible, highly hypocritical metric for artistic value. Marcel Duchamp literally signed a mass-produced urinal, called it Fountain, and it became one of the most important pieces of art in the 20th century. Zero physical effort, massive conceptual impact.
A classic example.
On the flip side, a Hollywood studio can spend $300 million and 3 years of grueling VFX labor to produce a superhero movie that is completely soulless and devoid of artistic merit.
Because the viewer doesn't actually care about the objective measure of effort. They care about the perception of a shared human reality. They want to feel that a consciousness similar to their own is reaching out across the void to communicate something true. When they encounter AI, the medium itself acts as an opaque wall blocking that perception.
Which brings us to the final, sweeping philosophical question this creator wrestles with. They ask, even if I am highly ethical, even if I'm fully transparent, even if my intent is pure, by utilizing these automated tools to scale my output, am I inadvertently contributing to the broader bot problem? Am I part of the disease?
To answer that, we have to look at the bot problem through the lens of information theory. The problem actually bifurcates into two completely distinct threats to the digital ecosystem.
Okay, two threats.
Problem one is deceptive manipulation. This is the realm of fake engagement arrays, automated phishing nets, and algorithmic exploitation. We've clearly established that the creator is entirely divorced from this problem.
Right, but problem two is much more insidious. It's the problem of saturation and perception. By dramatically lowering the friction required to produce media, AI ensures that the internet will be flooded with an infinite ocean of synthetic output.
A sea of it.
Even if every single piece of that output is ethically generated, the sheer volume creates a psychological crisis for the consumer. It becomes impossible to distinguish bespoke human intent from algorithmic mass production. It creates a pervasive underlying paranoia that nothing you interact with is real.
The creator is undeniably adjacent to problem two. By existing and publishing at scale, they are adding volume to an already overflowing reservoir. However, the critical distinction, the ultimate ethical dividing line, is the concept of signal-to-noise ratio.
Let's expand on that.
In information theory, noise is data devoid of meaning or intent. A massive language model churning out generic SEO articles is emitting pure noise. But signal is the deliberate encoding of meaning. The ethical creator is using AI as an amplifier for their signal. Their human intention is the foundational architecture. The AI is simply the contractor executing the blueprint.
I love how the creator frames this realization in the text. They stop apologizing for the medium and recognize their role. They say, I use AI to translate ideas I wouldn't otherwise be able to express. It is the compression of immense inner complexity into a digestible, shareable format.
The AI isn't the author. It is a synthesizer. It is a cognitive prosthetic. For a busy parent with a mind full of expansive world building and philosophical arguments, but only 2 hours of free time a week, the AI serves as a translation layer between their internal phenomenology and the external world.
That's a beautiful way to see it.
The malicious bot operator uses automation to hide their intent. The ethical creator uses automation to reveal their intent.
We are living through a period of immense cultural instability. The tectonic plates of how we define creation, labor, and authenticity are shifting violently beneath us. We simply haven't developed the cultural vocabulary to evaluate human meaning expressed through non-human tools. We are still trying to judge the digital landscape using the proof-of-work rules of old-school RuneScape while living in a completely automated, algorithmic reality.
It requires a fundamental paradigm shift in digital literacy. We can no longer rely on our biological instincts to determine what is real and what is synthetic.
What a massive conceptual journey this has been today. Let's trace our path. We started by ripping the facade off the internet, looking at the raw mechanical reality of automated scripts, how parallel processing and headless browsers execute digital leverage to buy up inventory and scrape the web.
We moved into the YouTube gray zone, deconstructing the APIs and LLMs that power fully automated content pipelines and analyzing the staggering multi-layered machine learning architectures algorithms use to filter out the illusion of momentum.
We dissected the philosophical divergence between economies of effort and economies of attention, recognizing that on platforms designed to capture human focus, automation isn't a glitch. It is the fundamental physics of the system.
And finally, we grounded all of that systemic analysis in the deeply personal struggle of a tool-augmented creator fighting against medium bias and the invisibility of cognitive labor just to express their humanity in an increasingly synthetic world.
The takeaway for you, the listener, is an upgrade to your digital immune system. The next time you are scrolling and you encounter a perfectly paced video essay or a comment section that feels a little too uniformly enthusiastic or a viral trend that spikes with unnatural mathematical precision, you now possess the forensic tools to evaluate it.
You don't have to ask, did a machine make this? Because increasingly the answer will always be yes.
The question you must ask is there a verifiable human intention guiding this machine, or am I being manipulated by the illusion of consensus?
You transition from a passive node in a network to an active auditor of digital reality.
You take back your agency. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought, a hypothetical to chew on as you stare at your screens tomorrow. We spent a lot of time today talking about trust heuristics, about how we instinctively reject AI because it lacks the messy biological imperfections of a real human.
Right.
But what happens when the models overcome that? As these tools achieve perfect fidelity, when the synthesized voice has the exact micro-tremor of grief, when the generated avatar possesses the exact subtle asymmetry of a human face, and when the invisible labor of the creator is entirely hidden behind a flawless digital mask, Will we eventually reach a saturation point where we stop caring about authenticity entirely?
It's a haunting thought.
If a machine, guided by a human, can perfectly mimic the resonance of a human soul and make you feel profound emotion, does the invisible process even matter anymore, or is the feeling itself the only truth left? Keep a close eye on your feeds. See you next time.